Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're very welcome to our review show, and we're going to discuss the semi-finals from the weekend. Both junior and intermediate championships now know their final pairings. In the junior, it's going to be Crossmaglen taking on the Lake, while in the intermediate, it's Carrick Cruppen and Cullaville. Ruairi Cunningham joins me to go over the weekend's games. Ruairi, thanks very much for coming back on. And we'll just touch on the junior first. The two games were both on Saturday and Sunday night. Saturday's was Crossmaglen defeated Derrynoosh by 1 point, 19 to 11 points, while Blake beat Darcy 2-11 to 1-11 on Sunday. And what I felt about the two games, probably the two best teams on show lost. Derrynoosh had ample opportunities to try to get a winner or to push on further when they were in the lead, didn't take them on come back to bite them, while Darcy, after a poor opening quarter, they were trailing 1-4 till a point after 15 minutes, come out and really dominated the second and third quarter before Blake were fit to pull it back with a goal at the end.
Yeah, it was two good games, and what championship semi-finals should be, absolutely dying with your boots on by both teams, and it was two great semi-finals. I have some sympathy for Derrynoosh. First of all, they've been knocking at the door in junior this last 4 or 5 years. Every time you say, who's in competition for the junior championship, Derrynoosh is one of the first names that comes up, and last year that massive win over Fork Hill and then didn't get over the line against College Land. This year, they seem to have come up against a Cross team that has swept all before them in junior, so they've had a rough lay of the land. And unfortunately, Crossmaglen, with that experience, Derrynoosh played the better football. There was no doubt about it. Derrynoosh played quality play, and they have good forwards at that level, but didn't have enough to see out the game. And Cross were able to bring on Johnny Hanratty, Paul McGill to the fore, to carry them over the line.
And Cross, you mentioned Johnny Hanratty, and he's worth mentioning. Their kicking game just wasn't working. They must have kicked 3 or 4 over the sideline, and when they were going forward, Paddy Kelly swept up everything in front of him for he was the Derrynoosh sweeper. Their kicking game just wasn't working. They introduced Johnny Hanratty with probably about 10 minutes left. He came on and kicked one, and he set up another one, and really he won the game for them. It's massive for a team of that to bring on somebody like Johnny Hanratty that has been there and done it all to come on and win the game.
Yeah, game intelligence is massive, and sometimes it's not about the fitness; it's about knowing what wins games, and I think that'll stand to Cross. And look at not to look too far ahead, but they with the final, they've a lot of players who have played in county, many county finals. A lot of them boys have 10, 11 county medals in their pockets. So, it'll be a big advantage to them when they play Blake's.
And that's going to be in 2 weeks' time. And Blake just about got through to the final in a really mental game. They were so dominant in the first quarter. It looked like they were going to... It was what I expected. I thought Blake would win this game and win it, pulling up probably. But Callum O'Neill was outrageous in the first half. He was brilliant. He only scored a point, but he was involved in everything good that Blake were doing. They went 1-4 to 1 point up at the first water break, and I think it was just maybe before the water break or just moments after it, Callum O'Neill picked up a bad shoulder injury, and that really dented Blake's chances, because not only was he no longer there to create things, Darcy completely took over in the middle of the field, and Connor Moley deserves special mention where he was the driving force behind that comeback.
Yeah, as I said, in all 4 games, over the weekend, there's no doubt Connor Moley was probably the outstanding player on show. And in fairness, Darcy were a credit. They were well organised. They didn't panic when behind, especially going in as the underdogs. And I think they'll be heartbroken that they had the game won. And especially thanks to Connor Moley, who took more hits and more, Blake's tried everything to stop him, within reason, and he was outstanding. But Sean McCreesh and James McParland in particular in the last 15 minutes really dug Blake's out of it when they were 4 points down and looked like they were dead and buried. Darcy had just scored a point to put them 4 up with 10, 12 minutes to go. And Leaks, to their credit, and to the quality side that they are, and maybe just a bit of experience in semi-finals at this level over the last couple of years, Gareth Thornton has them in an exceptional condition. And that maybe was apparent over the last 10 minutes, and their belief and their ability to kick the big scores, kick them over the line. And as I said, Sean McCreish's ball winning ability and ability to win frees and James McParn's free taking was the quality that made the difference. And of course, the exceptional goal that if he had missed, I think he would have been having nightmares for weeks to come. But it wrapped up the game, and the scoreline probably didn't reflect fairly on Dorsey at all, who should have won the game, really.
And that goal, Cashel Toner was the hero. He came on in the second half, and I was on commentary for this game, really, on Armagh TV. And I don't think I mentioned his name for the length of time he was on, and suddenly just found himself in a bit of space. And bang, what a goal to knock in to win the game.
Yeah. And as I said, it was a goal fitting to win a championship semi-final. And Beliks will have gained a bit from their experience from last year. And I think they'll be looking forward to a final against Crossmaglen. They will have to improve. There's no doubt about that. And Callum O'Neill recovering from the injury, hopefully it's not too serious, would be massive loss for them for the final. And that Cross's quality around the middle and the depth that they have, Callum would be a huge miss.
And no doubt both teams will have to improve and want to improve from below par displays at the weekend. And again, hard luck to Darrenus and Darcy. It's obviously tough to take losing championship semi-finals when you're so close. We'll move on to the intermediate championship on 2 more semi-finals. We had Carr Cruppen taking on Tullysarn on Saturday evening, and on Sunday it was Cullaville and Sarsfields in probably the big game of the weekend. But we'll start with Saturday night's action. Carr Cruppen, Peter Nugent was happy on Saturday night, texting me that his tip paid off. He went against us. We felt Tullysarn's experience, and I felt their better forwards was enough to get them over the line. But as it turned out, it was the youth of Carr Cruppen and their forwards that really dragged them over the line. And special mention has to go to the likes of Richard Keenan, Owen Woods, Tiernan Kelly. I thought they were absolutely superb and really stood up when the game was in the melting pot.
Yeah. I thought it was an enjoyable game, and the quality was quite high given the conditions. You know what I mean? It was a terrible night for football, and I think that over the 60, 65 odd minutes that was played, Carr Cruppen adjusted to those conditions a bit better. And I thought that their first touch, in particular from their forward line, their ability to win the ball clean, that Tullysarn struggled with, particularly in the second half against the wind, made a massive difference. You highlighted some of the players, Tiernan Kelly, for his ability to win a couple of marks as well. Took some scores from play, a fantastic mark, and Carr Cruppen in the second half were able to have that outlet that Tullysarn really struggled. Played a lot of ball through the hands. In particular, as I said, Brian Kelly played very well and was orchestrating really the game for Tullysarn, and they had a lot of possession, but struggled to convert that into scores because they couldn't make the ball stick in the full forward line. They couldn't get their quality players onto clean ball to get away. Mark McKeever, kept relatively quiet. It looked like Carr Cruppen got a lot of their matchups right, and Mark McKeever kept relatively quiet. Eddie Mallon scored an early goal, but couldn't really get into it. Gavin Conlon, struggled. So, and that was where the win of the game was, for Cruppen, where Stephen Lahern, picked off 2 superb points. Tiernan Kelly, Owen Woods, and that pace, the broke at pace, and attacked Tullysarn on the counter attack, really to pick them off.
Yeah, it was that pace. I just felt Carr Cruppen were awesome going forward. While on the flip side, really apart from Owen Daly for Tullysarn, I don't think they had that driving, electrifying pace that Carr Cruppen had. But you touched on Stephen Lahern there, and I want to mention him too, because some of the older heads deserve credit for the Carr Cruppen win as well. It wasn't just all their youth that got them through. Lahern, as you said, he scored 2 great points. He set up a couple of frees and he set up a couple of scores and won the penalty as well. So he had a huge impact in that second half.
Yeah, he did. He did. And I suppose just when you mentioned some of the more experienced players, it would be remiss of us not to mention Blaine Hughes in nets, and especially in the second half with the wind, his quality of kick out, his kick out, 65, 70 yards straight to Tiernan Kelly, ball into the box, Sean Black, wet, slippy night, the ball was just hit onto the crossbar. And that penalty really brought Carcluppen back into the game and, you know, negated whatever wind advantage, that Tully had built up in the first half. That was wiped out within the first 2 minutes of the second half. But Blaine Hughes' kickouts, I thought, were outstanding. The 65, he scored a 50 as well, and he really, Carcluppen won. I didn't see the exact figure, but dominated their own kickouts, which meant that, they had a firm grip on their possession. And not only that, kicked over the Tully press a lot, and they were able therefore to get their forwards onto free ball before Tully could get set up, and he was outstanding.
Yeah, I think the stats I had was the 17 kickouts and they retained 15 of them. And he can kick with his left foot, he can kick with his right foot, he can be the sweeper keeper that we know he is. He defends that 6-yard box brilliantly, and as you said, come up and scored a point as well. So Blaine Hughes, again, showing why he's the number one goalkeeper in the county, and Carcruppen are very lucky to have him. He was a real driving force getting them to the semi-final, and again, a real driving force in getting them over the line as well. His kickouts were incredible, Rory, and as you touched on, there was one of them in particular that led to the penalty. And it was one of them long ones in the second half that I think he went long with every kick out in the second half, and Carcruppen got a couple of scores off it. But that goal that was created all came from a Blaine Hughes kick out.
Yeah, straight from Blaine Hughes kick out. And I have to say, I have some empathy for Kevin Honaway, who was on, it was O'Grady, wasn't it, for the for the, or was it Stephen Lahern that won the
Stephen
penalty?
Lahern.
Sorry, Stephen Lahern, yeah, for the penalty. It was a wet night. The two players went down contesting the ball. I thought the penalty maybe was a slightly harsh call, and as I said, it was a turning point in the game that, Tully had been probably reasonably happy with their first half. Come in 2 or 3 points in front, having played, within themselves, but we're showing enough, and we're controlling possession, and keeping the ball well. But that, therefore, when Carcluppen then got in front, Tully had to come out and chase the game, and it left gaps behind that Carcluppen could, and had the pace to pick them off, with Woods and Kelly in particular.
And I suppose Tully won't be making excuses, so we're not going to make excuses for them. But they did pick up 2 injuries inside the first 15 or 20 minutes, and that's obviously a huge blow to any team in a championship semi-final. They lost their fullback, Adrian Conlon, and I think it was Kieran Mullen as well, had to go off injured.
Two very experienced players for Tully as well, especially in a tight game like that, players that have, won championships before. Tully played in intermediate finals as well with Tully, so they were definitely a blow. And around midfield, I thought Tully began to struggle as the game went on, particularly in the second half, and Kieran Mullen was a miss around there for him in terms of his ability to field the ball and to link play for them, and Kieran also has a quality to kick a score, so he was a miss. And again, Adrian Conlon's experience in the full back line, the matchups, we felt that, I felt that Carcluppen full back line dealt particularly well with the quality forwards, whereas I thought that in the second half in particular, the Carcluppen forwards got on top and won a lot of those battles, and Adrian Conlon definitely would have been a miss there,
And we spoke about Blaine. We'll go back to Blaine here. We spoke about him in the preview and how he was going to come out and he was going to play a sweeper keeper and he was going to push forward and he was going to come out on the Tully kickouts. And he did all that. I didn't think he was as effective on the Tully kickouts. He didn't come out to the middle of the field. He sort of just stood in front of his own 45. But there was plenty of times he joined the attack. And there was one time Tully tried to work the ball and Mark McKeever had a half chance and McKeever was always going to take the shot. but it just wasn't really a goal opportunity, and Blaine got back in time. What did you make of that, Rory, that tactic from Carcrup? And it's obviously one they've been practicing and one they'll use again in the final.
Yeah, well, I think it did impact Tully Sarn's decision making on their kick out, and it with the wind, it didn't allow them to go long because Blaine Hughes was occupying that space that Tully Sarn may have wanted to go long over the top into. As you say, I didn't think Blaine, just the way the game was, it was a tight, wet night. Blaine didn't take as many risks, maybe coming out in possession as he would have, had the game been, say, on Sunday, which was a better day, you know what I mean, and a better day for football. But again, it is an advantage that Carcruppen have, you know what I mean, that a lot of teams in intermediate don't have a keeper of that quality, both in in nets, in kickouts, and can play outfield. He actually played full forward against us in the league, so that's where he's a quality player.
And you mentioned Tully Sarn's early goal. Eddie Mullen was the one that got ended, and you couldn't pick it up on the Armagh TV coverage. But he done the Con O'Callaghan turn. He come out from the corner, just drifting out, and sharp turn, and he's in behind the defence, slipped the ball and scores a goal. And Tully Sarn just couldn't really build on that momentum. They got that early goal, but Cruppen got the next 4 points, and suddenly they were a point up, and it was game on then.
Yeah, and that early quality ball that Eddie Mullen got was really one of the only quality balls that Tully Sarn were able to deliver in and make stick, all night, and that was a constant problem for them. They had a lot of possession, as we said, but weren't able to make that stick to give their quality forwards a chance, even on the loop, to get enough scores off. It was going to be a low scoring game the way the conditions were, but Cruppen therefore were a wee bit more clinical, and making those opportunities stick, making the ball stick. Tully Sarn were putting themselves under pressure as the ball kept coming back out on them.
And obviously, as the end of the game came, Tully Sarn were trying ferociously hard to get a goal and just couldn't find one. And I had a wee chuckle to myself when Richard Keenan had the last free. As soon as it left his boot, he let a roar out of him. It was clearly over the bar before the umpire even had the flag raised. That was the insurance point. That was 4 points up. And very fair play to Carcrupp. And I made the point on the preview show that they really had nothing to lose. That whatever happened, it was going to be a successful season, winning the league, getting promotion, and reaching a championship semi-final. But now reaching a championship final from Division 2B, it's a massive achievement.
Yeah, and look, they were the best team in Division 2, over this extended, COVID period of, our league played over 2 years. There's no doubt Carcruppen have been the outstanding team in 2B, and they deserve their place, in the final. Tully Sarn were one of the favourites. I tipped Tully Sarn last week, and we both felt that with their quality of forwards that they would make the difference. But no, Carcruppen are well organised. Barry Flynn has them in good shape. I know their S&C work that they're putting in, is of great standard. They're working a lot in Blaine's gym, and they're doing good work down there. So they are a side on the way up, you know what I mean, and can probably feel that they can push on in 2A next year as well. Tully Sarn's a team that competes in the top of 2A, and I think that it'll give Cruppen great confidence going into the final, knowing that they beat a team of Tully Sarn standard, and that they shouldn't have anything to fear for next year going forward in 2A either.
Yeah, no doubt it's going to do their confidence the world of good. And as we say, we keep saying this young team coming up, they're going to be a force for the next few years. They're going to be Cullaville in the final, who I will take credit for winning. I tipped them. I felt that they were playing so well against Sharon Hills and St. Paul's, and they carried that form into the athletic grounds on Sunday afternoon. Again, no doubt about it, Rory, Cullaville were the better team on display on Sunday.
No doubt about that. I think, but with regards to the game as a whole, I think this was the best game of the intermediate championship standard-wise to date. The quality of scores taken. Collie Stevenson, Eamon McGowan took 1 or 2 good points, and from Hatzer and Garvey and Niall Rowland's goal was probably goal of the championship. What a move so far. But yeah, Cullerville. To be honest with you, I tipped Sarsfields. We had played Sarsfields ourselves. I felt that they hadn't really got out of third gear in this championship yet. That they'd beat Clonmore, by 6 or 7 points, and beat Whitecross the same without really having to push themselves too far. And Cullerville, came out with that intensity that we know we can. And the league result meant absolutely nothing. But there was a feel in Cullerville, and you could feel it in the crowd, Sean. There was a huge passion with Cullerville. They came with a great belief, obviously, that they could win the game, and that was very apparent from the first minute of the game. Their aggression, and their tackling in the middle third was ferocious early on, and Sarsfields really struggled to get their through the hands game going. Cullerville pressed really hard in the middle third, didn't let them build up easy. Put all their forwards under a lot of pressure when taking shots, and really made it very, very difficult for Sarsfields to score. Sarsfields had to work really, really hard for their scores throughout the game, and actually done quite well to stay in touch, because Cullerville were on top in a lot of areas of the pitch. Sarsfields worked very, very hard to stay with them.
Yeah, and Cullerville, we'll talk about their forwards, I suppose, first, and we'll move on to Niall Rowland after, because I think he deserves nearly a conversation on his own. But up front, you had Dara Quinn, centre half forward, you had Garvey inside, Cal Hatzer, Colin Waters. We spoke about Johnny Hanratty being a brilliant sub to bring on. Colin Waters coming on, really, that put the game to bed. He kicked 3 points in that last quarter to seal the deal for Cullerville. But Sarsfields, we were trying to think of our matchups last week, and we just weren't sure how they were going to line up. And Sarsfield's defence just were second best all day, particularly with Hatzer.
Yeah, and I think tactically, Cullerville got their tactics spot on, and the long ball in to the forward line, and used the height advantage of Hatcher and Garvey to win that primary possession with Dara Quinn, and the other half forward was James King. Yeah. Fed off them very well, and the spread of scores in the forward line, a huge amount of scores from play tells you its own story, with James King with 2 points, Dara Quinn with 3, but they used the height advantage really well. We weren't sure about Sarsfield's height at the back. They hadn't really been tested, both Clonmore and Whitecross really set back, whereas Cullerville played a very aggressive, direct brand of football that really, tactically was the correct decision. Niall Rowan's ability to pick up the short kick out and to kick 50, 60-yard passes down either wing of the athletic grounds, really took Sarsfield's middle strength out of the game. Sarsfields had been dominating break ball in both their earlier championship games. Cullerville didn't let them have that. Won the majority of their own kickouts. Went not short, but medium short kickouts around their own 45, and won a lot of possession clean there, and were able to get out over the Sarsfields press onto their big men, and that was the win of the game, and that was a threat from right from the first minute till the last. Cullerville stuck to their game plan very, very well, and served them. Sorry, go ahead.
Niall Rowland's link-up play with Hatzer was you could see it easily that every time Rowland got the ball, head up, and he was looking for Hatzer, and some of his passes, you said it, Ruairi, 50, 60-yard passes, unbelievable kick passes from Rowland. But not only that, he got in a lot of hard work, a couple of good tackles in the middle of the field as well. He got a huge point at one stage from maybe 50 yards out, and his goal, as you say, was probably the goal of the championship. He had drifted forward, nobody was picking him up, and Garvey put the ball into the middle, and Rowland maybe 21-yard line, and bang, a bullet to the back of the net. But we'll talk about how good Rowland was, and maybe how Sarsfield struggled to defend against them. Firstly, Rowland, unbelievable, superb game from Rowland. Again, that's his third in a row now that he's been outstanding.
Yeah, and the matchup, it was Keelan Skelton and on Rowland, and they both went and played their own game, and I didn't feel that worked well. Keelan Skelton's a good player, and got on quite a decent amount of ball for Sarsfield as well, but to leave Rowland with the free roll, I felt it was a mistake, and therefore he was able to dictate the pace of the game for Sarsfield, for Cullerville, and you could see his quality was, apparent from right in the off, and his kick passing was outstanding. The goal was a massive score. Cullerville came out and started the second half, and Sarsfields had done quite well, to be within, close at half time. Given that Cullerville would have had the wind advantage in the first half, but that burst, it was poor defending from Sarsfield's. 4 or 5 defenders all got sucked to the ball, and a great outside of the left boot pass left Roland free. And as I said, Sarsfields really struggled to get that goal back. That advantage was nearly there all of the half. Even when Collie Stevenson, especially in the second half, scored 2 points, maybe 3 points in a row, they could never get that goal advantage back, and it kept Cullerville with their noses in front all the time. And then as the game wore on, Cullerville were able to pick them off on the break with Niall Rowland's passing, out of defence, and the long ball meant that Cullerville were able to pick them off as the game went on, and were deserving winners. 4 points didn't flatter them. They were deserving winners in the end.
On the matchups where Keelan Skelton, as you said, he's an attack-minded midfielder. There's no doubt about it. He has been for the last couple of years. I remember he scored a hat-trick one time against Crossmaglen in the senior championship. But to put him on Rowland was just strange, because it let Rowland play his own game. You'd have thought maybe they were going to put a sticky man marker on him, which didn't seem to materialise. But it's worth noting that Rowland actually started in the defence. He actually picked up Paul McGowan early on. But as the game developed, then he obviously come out and played his midfield role and played it superbly well. Sarsfields, yeah, when they were in the senior championship a couple of years ago, they were known as goal scorers. I remember I done a club focus with Eamon McGowan in 2020, and I look back at the 10 years Sarsfields had been in the senior championship, and they were the second highest goal scorers apart from Crossmaglen, and Crossmaglen obviously played so much more games than Sarsfields had. One goal in the championship just doesn't reflect the goal threat that they really carry.
No, but I think they've changed how they're playing. They're playing a less direct brand of football than they were in senior, and it didn't suit them. In this championship, they scored a goal against Clonmore, was the only goal, as you say, in the championship. But it was very apparent that they weren't playing that direct style of ball. Paul McGowan was in full forward for a lot of time in the second half, and it wasn't until the 27th minute of the second half that they kicked the first ball into him. And Cullerville, Fergal Rowland in particular there at the back, really blocked up that middle channel, and Sarsfield struggled to get the overlaps through. Kevin McAlinton did make some good runs and scored 1 or 2 nice points, but they could never get inside. They never really looked like threatening to score a goal, bar 1 or 2 high balls at the end that maybe flashed across the post. But tactically, they seem to be happy to run the ball through the hands with Eamon McGowan and these guys scoring on the loop. And therefore, it looked like it was going to take a goal for them to win that game. They couldn't get their noses in front. And, but the way they're playing, they're not driving that ball into Paul McGowan. They're not playing with that target man really anymore.
And Sarsfields, on the previous show, I had spoke about the athletic grounds hoodoo that seems to be hanging over them. They haven't won in the athletic grounds. And I'm not sure how long, but it must be maybe 20 or 30 years at this stage, because they hadn't won in the last 10 years. They won the intermediate final in 2010, but that was in Crossmaglen because the athletic grounds was getting redeveloped, which it had been for the decade or so before that. So I'm not sure when any Sarsfields or Lurgan fanatics out there could tell me a date when the last one in the athletic grounds, but it came back to bite them once again, Rory, and I'm not sure how much you believe in hoodoos or curses, but it just didn't work out on the day in the athletic grounds once again for Sarsfields.
Yeah, and it was strange, but the big pitch suited the way Cullerville were playing, and that space, and their ability to isolate their big men one-on-one against Sarsfield's smaller defenders, was key, and the big pitch didn't suit their game, and look at, I'm not sure, as we said about Mayo and hoodoos last week, but unfortunately it wasn't anything to do with hoodoos on Sunday. I just think that Cullerville tactically had got their game plan right, mentally, and their aggression, you could see it, were well up for the game. And as I said, that was so apparent from the crowd and the roars early on from the scores. And the way Cullerville celebrated after the game, you know what I mean? You could see how much it meant to them. And they're a group of players that has been relegated. They've had a tough season, you know, but as you said, the championship has lifted, you know, their year, and that really, that result against Shane O'Neill's has turned their year around for them. You know, that this was a club that was struggling. They're going down to 2B, but now they could be looking at going to Division 1B. You know,
And
it's a massive turnaround.
where you mentioned it there, and I think that's a nice way to end it. The celebrations at the end for both Cullerville and Caircroppen were coming into this championship. Caircroppen obviously with the momentum of winning Division 2B behind them, but as you say, Cullerville relegated. There, it's a final pair nobody would have called at the start of the year, and rightly they celebrated at the end of the final whistle, both teams.
Yeah, well, I think that the championship took a while to come alight. This year, the intermediate championship, you know, and we had, you know, apart from Cullerville and Shane O'Neill's, really was the outstanding tie of the first round. You know, a lot of other games had went till form and where we had all predicted, but the two semi-finals really, you know, came to life, and the passion, you know, of this young Caircroppen team facing a rejuvenated, you know, Cullerville team. And so I didn't mention as much. You maybe mentioned just on Collie Waters coming on and the difference he made in the second half, you know, and that experience that Cullerville had, you know, and again, like Crossmaglen, to have a player of that quality to bring on, to score 3 points from play in a championship semi-final, you know, in 30 minutes of football was outstanding. And to have someone like that, having Collie fully fit for the final would be a massive boost for Cullerville, you know, and with a forward line, you know, the spread of scores that Cullerville had, you know, with Collie Waters, James King, Hatzer, Jarvey, Niall Rowland, you know, they really played. They played well all over the pitch, and their quality of scores, you know, came from over, and that'll definitely breathe great confidence into them going into the final. You know that they are in good form.
No doubt there's two teams going into that game full of confidence and, as you say, in top form, and it's definitely one we're looking forward to. We're also looking forward to the Crossmaglen and Blake final, the junior final. That'll be the same weekend. Them games are taking place in 2 weeks' time. Next up, we'll be back on Thursday with our preview show, and we'll be looking forward to the senior championship semi-finals as Clonard take on Ballymacnabb on Sunday. But first, on Saturday night, it's Crossmaglen against Silverbridge. Make sure, as always, to keep voting for your player of the week, who will receive a player of the week jersey, and the team of the week will be released as usual on Wednesday. Ruairi, thanks very much for coming on. It was great hearing your thoughts on all the games over the weekend.
Thanks, Sean. A pleasure to be on as always.